Alright, so I replaced the return line on the Lemans engine. So now the fuel goes back from the fuel rail all the way back to the tank. And now the engine runs absolutely awful. It takes a long time to start, and it runs really rough. So here's what I'm going to do to diagnose the problem. First thing I did, or I'm going to do, is hook up a fuel pressure gauge, because my guess is that my fuel pressure regulator is completely roasted at this point. I think the 100 psi that I was pumping through it when the return line was blocked was a little too much for the fuel pressure regulator, and my guess is that the regulator is junk. So what we're going to do is we're going to diagnose it, and then we're going to probably end up replacing the regulator. But I'm going to show you how I diagnose it first. Alright, I'm going to turn the key on. Alright, so we got up to, looks like about 7 to 10 psi. Alright, right off the bat, it should be coming up higher than that when I am turning on the key. I'm pretty confident that it should go up to at least into the 40s when you cycle the key on, but my guess is that the regulator is dumping fuel through the return line and not holding pressure. Alright, so I'm now going to start up the car, and then once we start it, you'll see that the fuel pressure is probably too low. The fuel pressure is way too low. It's getting higher, but it's like 42. Under the hood, if you take a temperature reading off of the manifold, 85 degrees, 85 degrees, 85 degrees, 85 degrees. Alright, let's check the other side. 170, 190, 120, 99. So, you can tell that this whole side of the engine is not getting something. It might be spark, it might be fuel, probably fuel though. Alright, since I know that the fuel pressure is lower than it should be, I think the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure there's gas in the gas tank. I am going to put some gas in the gas tank, and then we're going to try this again and see what happens. Alright, so I just put about 2 gallons of gas in the gas tank, and I turned the ignition switch, and now it is holding pressure a little more. So let's try and start and see what happens. That's better. Alright, let's check the temperatures of the exhaust manifold. Alright, so I'm now in the car, and guess what? I think it was just out of gas. Crazy, right? So yeah, I happened to change the fuel line at the same time that the car basically ran out of gas. So I was assuming that my fuel pressure regulator was junk, but really I was just out of gas. So that's great.